Okay, welcome back everybody. We're exactly where we were at the end of the day yesterday. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to discuss and also show you. So it's basically talking about the MIB mapping. So what I'm going to do is switch off the fog, and I wanted to try and see what happens if we have a look at the grass. We'll leave the rock for now, we'll just work on the grass. Open that up. And as you can see, there's no maps, and it's downscaled by 4. So, just quickly, we won't downscale it, and you'll see where we were originally yesterday, which is, yeah, there's just a lot of visual noise happening in the distance, which we don't like, so we're trying to fix that. And let's just put the bitmaps on with the default, because that one looks probably the most okay out of all of those options. I did have a play around, and it looks okay now. There's no noise over there, but we have this line right here, and as we fly around, even with the fog on, it's not so bad, but I'm imagining if we didn't have any fog, it's a little bit more noticeable, this line that we have where it goes from the normal quality to the lower and lower qualities. And I don't like that because as you're moving around it can be a little bit distracting. So yeah, like without the fog on, it's definitely more apparent, you know, this solid line that's happening right here. So what I was thinking is, what happens if we keep that default map on, but we do that with the downscaling. Oh, okay. That was silly of me. So the downscaling only works if we're not using the mipmaps. So that sort of answers my question. I was thinking, can we downscale and mipmap, and then maybe it won't really be so noticeable? But obviously, it only works with no mipmaps on. So, making a fool of myself, but that's okay. I guess it's going to be a part of the channel because I don't do any rehearsal or preparation before. I literally just start recording and then I go through it. Anyway, let's just stay focused. I'm going to try and billboard this sprite so that it's always facing the camera, and have a character controller running around as well. So let's see what happens. I'll say bye bye for now, and then I'll come back when I have something to show you. Alright, welcome back. Only took like 10 minutes, and it's kind of exciting. We're halfway there. Halfway through the first part, which is this character controller. I can now move around, but my mouse is doing nothing, which is a little concerning because in the tutorial that I'm following, his mouse is working. So I now am on my own, and I must troubleshoot and figure out what I did wrong. Because yeah, the tutorial is like 2 years old, so that might be part of the reason. But this is an important part of making video games, is things don't always go to plan, and you've got to figure it out. So, good thing though, I'm learning more. I'm understanding a little more about the flow of how things work. I thought everything was going to be in script, but actually he did the whole movement system using the blueprint system. So, I'm learning, which is wonderful. So, I'll be back soon, and hopefully we'll be able to look around as well. Hello again. So I'm going to show you the really silly mistake that I made. Basically, right here, I didn't pair this to this. I put the axis value to the values, but I didn't put the white one to the white one. So very simple little mistake. I actually had some lunch first, and then I came back to it, and I'll show you. So we can look around now, and we can look up and down. We can run around. which is excellent, but no jumping, no distinction between running and walking. So, it's just the first step. Get the thing moving, get the thing looking around. That's fantastic. Happy about that. And yeah, so I guess the next thing I'm going to do is probably scale this tree up so that it's an appropriate size. And I'm actually going to tweak the character controller a little bit because by default in most games the player controller is always exactly 6 feet tall. And I am 5'7". I am 170 centimeters tall, so I will actually adjust the character controller to reflect that because, representation and all that is important. So, yeah, I'll be back soon. I'm just thinking about, yeah, I'm going to come back to you guys when I have that tree billboarding nicely and it'll be scaled up and the player will be scaled down a little bit. So I'm going to do some scaling and then get the billboard working and then I'll come back to you. Welcome back. I have adjusted the player's height and the height of the tree, and when we run the game, the tree does rotate nicely to always face us. And it's not the best way of doing it. I tried doing it a different way and I just couldn't get it working. But basically right now I'm going to have to add this billboarding for every different thing that I may want to billboard, which is kind of silly. Ideally, I'd have that billboarding as just a component that I could attach to any of my actors and then they would work. But for whatever reason, it wasn't working, but it works. And yeah, I'll see as I move forward what other things, like if I need to improve upon it, I can. Because I'm just learning right now. Like I said, today's day 2 of learning about Unreal Engine. And yeah, it's quite a steep learning curve. I would say that there's quite a lot of stuff that's different. There is some stuff that's transferable. I still haven't done any code yet. It's all just, so this is my billboard here. And it's kind of making sense to me. I think a lot of it is really easy in the sense that, I'm just trying to think of how to put it into words. No, I don't think I'll mind with that. But as you can see on my billboard, I have down here the paper sprite set to the tree. So if I wanted to make one that wasn't that tree, if it was a different tree, I'd have to make a whole other one. And over here I have what was attempting to be basically the same thing, but it is an actor component blueprint, which means it can be attached to them. But I'm kind of understanding that it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems to me that you can't really avoid the blueprint thing. The blueprints are the scripts. So, like there is scripting, you can do some scripting. I haven't gotten there yet. But you're always going to be opening up these blueprints, because I suppose the blueprints are a little bit like when you make, it's kind of like making an asset that can be put into different areas. So it's slowly starting to come together. Yeah, I'm going to take a little rest now and have a think about where to go next, because I do need to proceed very carefully, because there's actually quite a lot of stuff that I need to add, and I don't want to overwhelm myself. But at the beginning it's always very exciting and fun, because yeah, it only took me like 10-20 minutes to get the player running around, and so it feels like I've made a huge amount of progress. But in my experience, the thing that I find the hardest to do is actually finding a good solution for having high quality, solid level design, because I get kind of bored designing levels. I kind of like the idea of designing levels. I say I like the idea, but the reality of it is like managing all those assets so they all fit together nicely and having a structure in place for building levels is something I find a little bit tricky. So at some point I'm going to have to start thinking about that. And I suppose I should put a little fire there so that I can have that understanding of how the flipbook works. Because yes, my sprites won't all be static, they will actually animate, and ideally we'll actually be able to interact with pretty much everything. I don't want to put stuff in the game that you can't interact with. Perhaps the geometry, like this brick wall, we don't need to interact with that. We don't need to interact with the floor, because they do already provide a purpose. But with these decorations, I kind of like the idea of them being more than just decorations, having, even if it's just a sound effect when you bump into it, you know, a little particle or something, just a little, give it a little bit of flavor so that it feels more alive. Anyway, I think that's enough chit chat for now. I'm not going to call it a day, but I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do next. So I think I'm going to go take a chill, relax, have a think before I progress any further. Because yeah, I'm kind of full from that wonderful meal. So my thinking is slowing down a little bit now, and that's always a wonderful time to take stock and look at the bigger picture. Because I often find with video game development, it is a constant battle between, I don't know if to say battle, it's a dance. It's a dance between like very, very precise detail of like, why does this specific feature work the way that it does, and how can I refine this tiny little thing to be exactly the way that I want it to, so very minute and detailed. And then you've got to remember that it is an entire game, and you have to look at it in that way, because when people play it, they don't just play that tiny little bit that you spent ages working on, they play the whole thing. So, and they kind of look at the whole thing and judge it as one thing, because it's one game, even though that one game is made up of many, many parts. So, going between the minute detail and the... anybody who lives in Australia, or particularly in Western Australia, in Perth, might know on a Thursday it is late night shopping. It is Thursday, isn't it? Yeah. And so that means I kind of need to run up to the shops because I got a couple of things to take care of. So I'm going to wrap up the video now and talk to you a little bit about what I did. So, I think the most obvious thing is the sky, right? Really great, short tutorial, very simple. It's a free asset, basically. The sky's already been done, and it comes with some wonderful day-night cycle features, and you can adjust the colors on the sky and stuff. So I haven't finished playing around with it or exploring all the potential in that, but I was quite impressed by how simple it was and how kind of nice the effect was. And I did have to go and sort of downgrade the textures in there so that I could get this pixelated look. I actually switched the bloom back on because the sun looks much better with the bloom. But what I'm actually going to do is switch bloom off, and I'm going to get that texture for the sun and replace it with a more pixel appropriate sun. But then that presented an obvious problem, which is that we have the sky, we have the sun going up and down, we're going from day to night, but my lights were all the same. They were just staying one color. And it was a little bit difficult for me to get the already made asset that is this sky with its daytime and kind of connect that to the light. I tried doing that and it was too difficult. So what I ended up doing was just making a component for the light where it goes up to full brightness and it waits, and then it goes down to full darkness and then it waits. And I've only got one light in the scene, that's why all my walls are perfectly black, because I only have one light shining all the way down. But let me show you. And I probably should have done this at the start while I was talking, but something else I can talk about quickly. So I have some artifacts. We can kind of see the sort of rings, the circles at the top of the sky there. And it's obviously much worse if I look all the way up, but another very short, sweet tutorial about how to clamp the look height. And that was quite nice. So we're only able to look up a certain amount. We can look down more than we can look up, but as you can see, around the time the sun went down, it's a bit darker now. So obviously I'm going to have all 6 lights in all 6 directions, so that it's a little bit like how it originally was. All the walls and the bottom and the top will all be evenly lit, but they're all going to fade in and out with the sunlight. And I have a little bit of math that I have to do, because this day-night cycle is actually using real-world time, whereas see how it's a little bit delayed now, but there it is. It did come up. What was I saying? That's right. So the day-night cycle is using real time. Like, I just input how many minutes do I want it to take for, like if I put 60, it'll take an entire hour for the whole 24-hour cycle to happen. Whereas with my lerping light, which is about to lerp again, I suppose because it's not totally in sync, it's gonna offset itself a bit. But with this one, I'm just using the tick, and tick is based on the frame rate. So I suppose if I have a frame rate that's capped, it might work, and I feel like frame rate might fluctuate a little bit, so then we might have some inconsistency. The other thing is the computer has its time, right? Every computer has a clock inside of the time. And I think that is how they are getting the time minutes for the day-night one. So basically I need to make it so that my lights are using real-world minutes. Then I can match the duration of these with the night and day cycle. So I might work a little bit more later on tonight, because I was really proud. Let me show you. My timed light. So I attempted to use a little bit of the ChatGPT and also Claude AI to help me, and they kind of helped a little bit with some of the foundation stuff. Like, I didn't know, you can actually just make variables that they all go in here, so that's new to me. But a lot of this I actually just figured out by just thinking about it, in the sense that, like, this delay, I actually, when I went, I could wait, task wait delay, and it said wait specified time, same functionality as a standard delay node. So I thought, well, if the delay node is standard, it's much shorter to write. So if I'm going to be doing this in the future, I'll probably just use the delay. So I just put the delay in. And that's wonderful. So I'll talk a little bit about what happens so that you understand that I understand. So this is right here where I was talking about something that's happening based on the frame rate. And it's around here that I need to adjust with the real world. So up here is when the game begins, and we're setting the intensity. So this is actually the light getting set. This is my current intensity, and this is my max intensity. And over here, we basically ask true or false. And this was thanks to the AI teaching me, because there's so many things in here, so many. So to know what's possible and what's not possible, it's kind of tricky. But a lot of it is just like coding. They're all just like functions or features. So basically, yeah, if the light should go up is true, then our current intensity gets lerped. Like, it doesn't just go from 0 to 1, it goes 0, 0.1, 0.2 until it reaches 1 nice smoothly. And that's determined by this speed here. And the current intensity lerps up to the max intensity.
And then over here, we actually set the intensity of the light. So the light intensity is equal to this current intensity, and this current intensity is equal to a gradual flow up. So that kind of confused me a bit, because I feel like this should be in front of here for some reason instead of behind, but I'm getting there slowly. And these are all using the delta time. I don't understand why delta seconds, like, I need to look into it. I got a lot more. I'm quite in over my head. But compare float was something I found because I realized, yeah, I'm sure a lot of the stuff is just standard coding stuff, so I can just look up compare, and then it was like, oh yeah, you want to compare two different numbers with each other. So if the max intensity is equal to the current intensity, so if our current intensity has reached its position where we want it, we're going to delay by our number defined as day duration. And once we finish delaying that, we're going to set our is increasing to false, which brings us back to here. And so then we flow into the false. And the exact same thing happens, but it's going to be looping with that minimum intensity. So the current intensity gets pulled down to the lowest possible number. And also kind of cute, I didn't realize before, but it can all be watched in here. Can it? I don't know why it's not now, but it was before, where I could see all the stuff flowing. It might be because I actually don't know. So still lots to learn, lots to learn. But yeah, basically I have a nice little day-night cycle that's very, very basic and not synced up at all. And as you can see, I switched the fog off, so I'm going to switch the fog back on, and then I'm going to have this same code, but instead of this setting directional light intensity, we'll just set the fog density. Intensity. Yeah, set the fog density down or up. And that's if I do decide I really want to use the fog, because the fog adds a very specific look, which is kind of a very moody, sad look. And I do kind of want to have a nice, bright, happy daytime where we can see clearly quite far into the distance. But you can see that there's still that horrible visual noise. So that needs to get resolved. Anyway, I'm going to call it quits now for this video. I might do some more work tonight. And if I do, then whatever I do will be part of tomorrow's video, because yeah, I've got to wrap up and actually edit the video and put it on YouTube before I forget. So thanks for watching, everybody. Have a lovely time.